This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from all of the Shadowhunters worlds, as well as mentions from ACOFAE and Supernatural. For a full list, please see show notes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are continuing our December Shadowhunters tradition, and we are covering the, I guess you could call this new release, new collection of Secrets of Blackthorn Hall. Jessica Marie, what is this?
So this was actually a fun, I don't know if it was a fan project. I think it was really just a self project for Cassie Clare. During peak COVID, she had said that she's going to, it's an accessible book through Tumblr. I'm sure that there's a way that you can put it into read to speech mode to make it audio friendly. And she was releasing a chapter every week of Secrets of Blackthorn Hall. And it takes place after all of the main trilogies, I guess you can say. It takes place after The Last Hours. It takes place after The Dark Artifices. It takes place after what's the original one called? Just the Shadowhunters Chronicle?
The Mortal Instruments.
Oh, the Mortal Instruments. Duh.
And there's 6 of those bad boys.
And there's 6. And obviously, if you've been following us for a while, you know there's all the anthologies and the novellas and all of the chapters and everything in between that we still haven't tackled, because now we're at a point where it's really me, Jessica Marie, who's dragging our feet because I don't want it to be over. But it's not going to be over for a little bit because we have the Wicked Powers trilogy that still gets to be explored that hasn't been released yet. And also 4 books on top of the Secrets of Blackthorn Hall that are being released through her Kickstarter program that we had invested, I guess you can say, into a couple of years ago at this point, I guess 2022, it initially said that by investing into the Kickstarter, books would be, we would have all 4 books that she was working on in March of 2024. And it's the end of 2024 and we only have 1. So there's some learning curves that comes with this Kickstarter. But the important thing is the Secrets of Blackthorn Hall is accessible on Tumblr. She was releasing it a chapter a week. It's about 52 chapters. I think that was kind of the I didn't count as we were reading, but that was kind of the pace that she was going as a project for herself, something to do during COVID. And it's so wonderful because it's set in present day and you're reading the entries. The entries are a mix of diary entries that kind of Emma and Tessa are doing, and also letters to each other. So the story moves along with the letters to
Before you keep going, Jessica Marie, I have a question for you.
Oh no.
Jessica Marie, could you just start your Shadowhunter journey here? Could you just pick up this book and just read this book?
The only way somebody should be starting their Shadowhunters journey is your way, which is now our way. Follow all of the things because, what have we said in Holly Black episodes and Cassie Clare episodes where we're like, bitches love Easter eggs. We are bitches. Because you throw in an LH initial, I'm like, oh, Lucy! And then you even have Emma saying, I have no idea who this is, but the H, I bet money that is a Herondale. And then she'll write little notes and it's so funny because I think she was writing Christina or something and she goes, guess what I just found out? This girl Tatiana had a thing for Will Herondale. It's always a Herondale, isn't it? Or like a little nod that Ty came to visit them and he would look out the window and the commentary is like, oh, this room is great. It has great view of a duck pond. It has such a beautiful view. But as a fan, you're like, fuck them ducks. But also like, LOL ducks. They're so great.
So that would be no. That would be a no. Do not start.
No, you would just be like, who are all these people and why would I care?
Yeah. Yeah. Why do I care? Why are they writing letters? What is going on? Like,
there's lore. There's deep lore.
There's so much lore here. I also kind of want to shout out the order that Jess mentioned, our Shadowhunters order that I have made you kind of force you to read, Jess, because I do feel that like the way that we have covered this made these characters seem still fresh, because like the way that we finished everything, like I'm sure you still remember Tatiana. I'm sure you still remember that coffin where they all threw like their stuff in James's gun, and like you remember these details. And then to have Emma interacting with these people that in these books, and Emma and Julian still being so fresh from everything that we've experienced through them. I personally found this to be incredibly delightful. And then for you though, for your perspective, like as a first time, like all the way through with all this Shadowhunter stuff, were there parts where you were like, who is this person? Or were you like, yeah, I got this?
I think there were parts that, because it's been a year since we last revisited them, and I feel weird, but that's just kind of the cadence of how we've been exploring the Shadowhunters, is that it still felt so fresh, and Cassie wrote it in such a way that you didn't feel like you had to do an entire reread to read this, which was really fun because I was like, wait, Tatiana, wait, why do I think she was the bad one, you know? Mm-hmm. And then it would be like Blackthorn and her dad. And I was like, oh, Demon Pox. Her dad is Demon Pox. So like little things would be dropped here and there, or again, in their letters, I think Tessa one day was writing the Lightwood's mom, Marcy. And at first it said like, Dear Marcy. And I was like, who's Marcy? And then she like gave background saying like, look, you are a mother of a Lightwood. You are a mother of a Herondale. Like, this is probably a fresher memory for you raising teens, because it's been well over a century for me, you know? And she does such a great job where you're like, oh, that's right. That's the thing. Or when we're exploring James and Cordelia's house, you know, you're like, you know, Emma's walking through and she's like, oh, there's a clawfoot tub. And we were like, we knew that fucking tub. It was so fun. And it was so much joy. And you read this twice and I was still so reluctant to pick up. And I was like, what kind of book is this? Is this going to break my heart like the other anthologies and the other novellas that we've read where I'm crying, sad? And you were like, think of it like an ACOFAE, because it's not necessarily Hallmark holiday special, but is the levity and the excitement to be back in this world and to be back with old friends, as we always say when it comes to the Shadowhunters.
And back with old friends we are. I think that if you're listening to this, well, welcome. And you have to be a fan of the Shadowhunters, because we're going to go through this not in detail, because I think part of the charm and part of the delight in this is like reading it for yourself, however you choose to read it, and kind of feeling that joy, just you put it so nicely, of like being back with old friends, because that's what it feels like. Like we start off with Emma writing to Christina and you're like, oh my God, yes, polyamorous, yes, all right. You're back in it, like immediately. And it was such a smart way for Cassie to approach it this way, because you're catching up with your friends. We have to remember that, like, yes, you can text, because we see that in the physical copy, and I'm sure on the digital Tumblr copy, of like the texting between Drew and Kit and the different cadences there. But also we know Shadowhunters as a whole, there are a lot of things that they keep to tradition. So you have the physical photos, you have the physical writing, because you have to deliver the mail a certain way, because the postal service isn't going to do it.
I don't know. It was so great just to like, if you forgot where we left off, Christina is, Triangle is the strongest shape in a relationship with Mark Blackthorn and Karen of the Fae. And even Julian writes to Mark like different ways that they were like, what did they call it at one point? Like they were like, something palace, threesome palace or something. It was so cute. He's like, I love you. We love you all. Like, come all the time. We miss you.
It's so wonderful. Okay, so why are we here? We're here because Julian's old aunt that he was visiting when we first were introduced to the Carstairs. I guess the second time we were introduced to Julian and the Blackthorns and the Carstairs and all of them. That aunt died and left Julian the shitty old Blackthorn Hall. We love that though, because it has been a setting for so many scandalous things. Demon pox. I think that the little detail of the clave being like, yo, you got 5 years to make it livable, or it's like reverting back to us, my guy. Like, this is how real estate works. Like, let's go. And Julian being Julian and immediately hiring workers and builders and like getting on top of it is just like the foundation of our story. And I find that really fun because also part of it too is like remembering who Emma is and who Julian is and who their siblings are and where they are in the world and setting the stage. All of this is setting the stage for the Wicked Powers, which is coming out after this. So we have a subplot of the Wicked Powers running through here of like, look, they've made contact with Manuel in Idris, and he's getting messages through, and there's trying to be a communication there, and something weird is happening in Fairy. Like, all of these undercurrents are there, and then at the end, like, Jaime is missing, and that is like a lead-in, and it's going to take us into the Wicked Powers. So I do love that while we have, and the example of ACOFAE is excellent because like while we have, I guess, fluff, like it really is like, it's like delicious fluff. Like
compared to what we're normally exposed to in the Shadowhunters world, this is fluff. Like,
yeah, it's fluff,
but needed.
Fluff.
We're usually so broken and damaged after a Shadowhunters read that all lashes are intact. Lashes are intact.
But like, here's the thing too. Like, we have all this delicious fluff, but then we have an undercurrent of plot. And that is, I think, really, really fantastic. And of course, again, do not start your Shadowhunters journey here because we're starting off with Blackthorn Hall. Like, we're here with Tatiana. We're here with Rupert Blackthorn. Like, we have to go back to like James and Cordelia and their trilogy, their story to like really understand what's happening here with Tatiana. And that's crazy. Like, how fun is that? And it is just lovely too, because we also have Benedict, and like, of course, Benedict started this whole thing. Like, of course he cursed the place. Like, of course we've got to like get these objects on these ley lines. Of course we got to do all this stuff, Benedict. Ugh.
Well, and then Magnus, like, annoyed about it all. He's like, oh, yeah, here we are again. Of course they need, or like Ragnar bringing up the ley lines map in a whole other language. And Julian writing Alec. Coptic. And then Julian writing Alec because he feels bad about bothering Magnus again. He's like, it's all good news, but I can really know how annoyed Magnus will be right now, knowing that we have like ancient ley lines that we're dealing with. Meanwhile, Magnus on the other end is like, nobody asked me. Like, it's annoying because I don't want to keep being bothered. But like, if you just asked, I'm here, been around for forever and a day, have all the answers. But they all just like, they all work together. And one thing we always talk about found family being show, not tell, right? And Cassie Clare does a wonderful job. She continues to do that in Shadowhunters because this is that. It was somebody, Julian and Emma needed help with Blackthorn Hall. Say no more. Magnus left family vacation for a day and a half, 2 days, and was there. And it was like dropping everything for each other. And I think it's something to be said about not just a found family, but a community that they have with each other, because communities seem to be just overall in the real world, like dwindling and harder to find. And Shadowhunters found their people. And even if it's just hey, look, I'm at university right now, but like I have a hot second, I'll pop on over through a portal.
And Cassie Clare does such a great job, too, of reiterating exactly what you're saying, Jess, at the end when Emma is like, it's really crazy that we thought we could do this ourselves. Like, obviously, we're going to need everybody. Like, why did we think that we wouldn't need everybody? Like, it's looking around, like, we're all here, and it took all of us to break the curse. Like, obviously, it was going to take all of us. Next time, we'll just start all together. And I was like, you know what?
Yes, because it's like, it was like that last time, too, with the dark artifices, and they've all collectively, Tessa and Jem too, everybody has always known, and Alex should know better from the Mortal Instruments, like everything has always been, everything works better when we're together. But it's also the guilt that comes with being a Shadowhunter and not wanting to burden other people and thinking, you know what, like maybe we can just handle it ourselves, especially Julian. Poor Julian, love of my life. He definitely continues to be probably my favorite Shadowhunter boyfriend, book boyfriend, that he's like you said, he finds out that his aunt, I'll take charge. I'm going to fix it up. It's going to be, if it's not my house, it's going to be the house of my siblings. I'm going to take lead. It's the control. And like, even though like he's not the oldest brother, because Mark technically is, like Mark was away forever. So he has always assumed this role as not just big brother, but parental figure and leader, and having to be the one. He doesn't want to burden other people maybe, but like Emma is with him now. So it's like, he even would try to do things before Emma knew. And he's like, oh, by the way, this is already taken care of. We already hired some brownies. We got it. And you see that even in their individual discourse when they're reaching out to other people. I don't want to tell, Julian, like he's going to get stressed. And Julian's like, I don't want to tell Emma. I don't want her to think she's worried. And then later in their letters to other people, they'd be like, so we wound up telling each other and it was so much easier.
Well, and just what you're talking about is the house being haunted. Emma, through her correspondence, is like, I have this like deep feeling of unease, like this creeping darkness, like this bad juju, this bad vibes. And Julian in his correspondence is like, yo, I think this house is haunted. And eventually they tell each other and they're like, yeah, no, totally. This house is haunted. Okay, basic bare bones of the plot. Julian inherits the house. The house is haunted and cursed. Okay, haunted and cursed. One and the same kind of, sort of, but yeah. Okay, so Julian Julian, through eventually talking to the ghost, finds out that he needs to collect a bunch of objects together and bring them together, and that when they bring them together, then the silver band will be exposed. The silver band is what binds the ghost to the house. And then the curse will be broken and the haunting will be done. That is like, the plot is like a little quest book, and everyone's involved, and all the places that we love are involved, like the Devil Tavern and the Hell Ruel.
Because we have the physical copy, again, don't know if this is the same online, when you have the Devil Tavern and then we saw the sign, I was like, Laura's been there! Laura's been there, and she has a picture with it, and so I, through extension, felt like I had been there, and I was seen it.
You're just like, yes.
Yeah, and then the Hell Ruel, how can we forget Cordelia Carstairs at the Hell Ruel? Like, I was just like, oh, memory.
But that's what it was, memories. And let me tell you what. So, because everybody's involved here, Ty is involved, and Julian and Emma end up writing Ty, and Ty creates a ghost sensor and gives it to Julian and says like, yo, find some objects, find the stuff, find the haunted stuff with this. And they do. And Julian and Emma end up just like going on a romp through London to all of our favorite places to find these cursed objects. And one of them is Alistair's dagger, which is in a cache in a church. And as soon as that dagger came out, I was like, Alistair, what are you doing here? Because here's the thing, Jessica Marie. I did not expect this to go to the Merry Thieves. I don't know why.
Oh.
But I don't know why I didn't expect that. I just didn't. So this inclusion of Matthew's flask and the coffin with, Cordelia's scabbard and James's gun and going to all of these places and getting to see the Merry Thieves again was really lovely because we don't have a lot of that. Obviously, they're like one of the latest things to be written. So there aren't a lot of them in the other stories as Easter eggs. So getting to revisit them here when they're still relatively fresh was like, oh my gosh. And then again, as you're going through Blackthorn Hall, which has such a storied history, and Jess, you mentioned the physical copy. In the physical copy, we have pictures of that wallpaper that Benedict Lightwood wrote all those infernal devices on. We have that. The infernal devices will not stop. They are without mercy. Thank you, Benedict. It is all there in blood. Like these histories are just so much fun. And just like the little box of Grace Blackthorn's dolls, like all of this, I was just not expecting so much of the Merry Thieves, and to have them included in this story with Emma made it feel very like fresh and inclusive. And then we've got we have Jem there too. And here's the thing, of course, Jem Carstairs, like the OG here, my guy. Oh, Jem, always so hot. Brother Snackariah, but
climb you like a tree.
Brother, climb me like a tree, Araya. But the thing with Jem too is like, Jess, as you were saying, like, sometimes it's hard to like ask for help. And like, Julian doesn't want to be a burden, and he's asking Hypatia Vex, he's asking Ragnar Fell, like he's asking Magnus, like he's asking all of these people. And eventually Jem is just like, Magnus, Julian is not going to ask you. I don't have any qualms about it. Pack up your shit and get over there. Do it as a favor to me. I know that you love me. Like, he's not going to ask. I'm going to do it. Just do it, please. Julian's too polite. He needs a warlock. You're the best. Go. And I just really love that about Jem. And it kind of reminds us of his history with Magnus, that it goes back so incredibly far, that he has such a different relationship. Like, he knew Jem as a little boy. So it is then so wonderful to have him be like, Magnus, enough of whatever this is.
And it's so funny that you say their history, right? Because I think of our Shadowhunters journey, and one of the notes that I had, I was taking a lot of notes initially, and then I was like, no, I really just need to vibe because I'm having so much fun with this. But like, in certain moments in this book, Magnus, Jem, and Tessa are the only ones who know how deep the history of everything. So then it would be like, you have Emma feeling like indifferent about Cordelia or seeing Cortana or seeing their house. And I don't know who this person is. And not having that connection, but we know, and of course, like based on the order that we read it in, to what you were saying, like we don't have a lot of the last hours, but in the Dark Artifices, we have so much of the mortal instruments, and in the mortal instruments, we have so much of the infernal devices. And even the first time that I read I told you if you go back to that first episode, I was I picked up the first book, Clockwork Angel, and I was crying knowing that, spoiler, I guess, if you're here, Will is dead. I didn't know how we got there, but I knew he was dead. And so even in this one, we know where we are in the history of the Merry Thieves, and you see it in Tessa's like reflecting of the past, and in Jem saying like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. It's too soon right now. But it's deep, and then you think of the anthologies and the novellas that we've read, where Tess and Magnus have such a deep relationship that they've had to go through with like various wars that they've gone through, not just Shadowhunters war, but like real world World Wars I and II and having to break away and come apart. And there is such a deep, profound love and understanding. And I guess like I'll be, at lack of a better word, trauma bond for understanding the depth and them being the only ones who will know that they will continue on too. So it was just like, try not to get emotional about that stuff.
As you were saying that, do you know who that made me miss? Someone random, someone named Raphael. It really made me miss Raphael being part of this. I missed his voice. I missed his sarcastic, just like done with you. I also miss Lily. I miss the vampires. I miss the way that they were just like done with everything, but always there to help and do the right thing, but also we're vampires, but also, you kind
of expect them because you have the mention of the werewolves. So, yeah. Like there's different things, especially with how we're used to Cassie Clare's writing, especially like in the novellas and the anthologies, that there's always a different, I don't want to keep saying Easter eggs, but a little homage to previous things, because her world is it's so fleshed out and so detailed that you expect certain things. You're like, somebody should be around the corner any second.
Well, okay. You know what I did? Here's something I did expect. I did expect Tatiana to be in the fucking walls, because of course she is. Of course she's in the walls. She can't be there physically. She's going to shove her diary pages in the walls and make the ghost sensor go off and enchant her diary so that everybody forgets about it and causes drama for no reason.
She's so predictable. She's so predictable. But also like the forgetting of the diary, I can also feel is like...
Little girls
especially after like she enchanted this diary after Will got a hold of the first one and read her shit out loud. So like fair. I would have done that too. It's like those when like they had like diaries that you can put passwords into. Like you didn't want to tell anybody your password. You wanted to put your secret thoughts there. So I feel like that was her equivalent to it. And she's like, and you're going to forget about it. So even if you do find this, you're not going to be able to talk about it.
And even if you do break the enchantment, it's going to get into a Pergatic language and you're not going to be able to read it anyway. I
get because of events, I can see why she was like, fuck all y'all.
But of course Tatiana's in the walls causing drama, because why wouldn't she be? Of course.
I mean, girl knew how to be petty, that's for sure.
Yeah, she did. Okay, so what is happening? Emma, through the ghost sensor, finds Tatiana's diary, and then we just get insight into Tatiana, which fine, I guess, which a lot of it is just kind of sad, but some of it is very funny.
I was going to say, do we feel like it's insight? Because I feel like we already knew all of this about Tatiana. Maybe not in first person form because she's writing in her diary. But I mean, even Emma says, once we had Hypaxia translate everything, and she's like, look, I'm not translating everything. I'm giving you the highlights. And Emma's like, I liked hearing her bitch about her siblings and the stuff that she was wearing.
It's very funny, but a lot of it is Tatiana, spiraling into the Tatiana that we meet in the last hours. She is spiraling into rage and insanity, more or less, and really focusing her hatred on her brothers and the Herondales and the Carstairs and what they did to her, that she perceives that they did to her. They didn't do anything to her. But, and of course, Rupert dies. And Rupert dying is a huge plot point in the last hours. It's a huge plot point now, still to this day. Poor Rupert, still hanging around, which is sad because we saw Rupert's ghost be like, Tatiana, no more. Sorry, spoiler. But hey, if you're here, and then he just faded, he faded out or whatever. But we know he's been trapped in that house ever since James and Cordelia were alive, and that's really sad. So so all of that. But summing up the plot a little bit more, Emma's got the journal, and we're learning that Tatiana had to replace the ley line objects that her dad used to protect the house with objects that were important to her. Her patron told her that. That's Belios. And we then learn that she put the objects of her enemies, her perceived enemies, on these ley lines to bolster the power and, of course, the haunting. And it's funny because we see all of these objects and you're like, wow, when did you take that though? Like, why do you just walk around stealing people? Like, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, because they're so specific too,
yeah.
right?
Like they knew that was missing.
Yeah, like, I mean, yeah, like that was the thing. She was so like, were you lurking? Were you waiting for them to forget about it?
I mean, did you take the bath? Why did you just take the bathtub? Like, my God, like that's just crazy. But that's what Tatiana did. And that is the plot. So Julian and Emma have to track down all of the objects scattered throughout London for various reasons and then bring them back to the house and break the curse. And in doing that, they visit our famous places, as I said, but they also go to Fairy, and that's where we touch on the plot a little bit. And that's where we get the letters between Janice and Ash, which, Jess, do you remember who these people are?
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
I feel like that was a blur.
That is Jace from Thule.
Oh, okay.
And Ash is, I'm totally blanking on his name, but Valentine's son. Who is that? I'm totally blanking on the name. Oh my God. Sebastian. Sebastian and the Queen of Fairy had a son, that son is Ash.
Right. Yes.
So Ash is that son, and Janice is the name means the two-faced god, but
which is
that is Jace from Thule, and Jace from Thule is here to get Clary.
Which is what we've been saying since the Dark Artifices when we were in Thule of like, that's gonna have a, like, yes.
And that is when Emma and Clary are out and they are at Taki's, and Clary's like, I thought I saw Jace, but it wasn't him. It was fucking Jace from Thule. It was Janice. Because he's out to get her. Like, I mean, he's obsessed with her.
Because that was where, when we were talking about in our Dark Artifices episode, we were like, that's the Clary we know would have been more attuned to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there we go. There we go. Very, very fun. Again, Easter eggy stuff. So that's why the Seelie Queen was like, yo, you just want to stay in the throne room? Bet. Call up this puka. Let's get this fish slice. I think this is so funny, this fish slice thing. Let's get this fish slice. Let's get this going. Like, of course, the fish slice is a wedding present. Will and Tessa. From Henry and Charlotte. Just so fun. Excellent stuff. But one of my favorite parts, Jess, is the letters from Kieran. Just to whoever, doesn't matter. You know, Kieran's one of my favorite characters of all time here in the Shadowhunters world. But Kieran is like, yo, don't assume that I know every puka that makes hats, my guy. That's like me asking you if you know every human in California. Check the privilege for a second, okay? But also, yeah, I do know this puka. And I'm going to set this up. Like,
Kieran is... You know, I love how formal and serious he gets when with all of his correspondences.
Hail Craig.
Hail Craig. And then he like throws in, you're like not necessarily an out of pocket thing, but then it's such a one-liner where you're like, he's funny. You know, it's that friend who's serious all the time, but then they have like really quick quips and you're like, this guy, we gotta keep him around.
This guy, he's very funny. Hail Craig. Hail Craig came from Mark, Julian, Christina going to visit Emma and Julian, and they went out for a night on the town and got absolutely shit-faced and kept running into the same party.
It was a retirement party. And Kieran's like, you know what? Like, humans, like, we always say Shadowhunters know how to party, but let me tell you, businessmen who are retiring, they are another level.
They almost outdrank the king of Unseelie. It is very funny stuff. Very, very funny. I love Kieran. I love Kieran. But his correspondence throughout all of this is, like I said, my favorite part. But the way that he is like, yo, I'm going to set this up, but you need to be my spies. You need to be my spies. Look, I am also like we're buddies. We're so good with the friends here, but I'm also the king of Unseelie. And I need to know what's going on because our peace treaties are being rebuffed. Our meetings are being rebuffed. We can't make contact at all. And things are getting weird. So like, keep your eyes open, my guy. Let's go.
And then he's talking about with his politics, like, yes, we need kind of our spies on the inside. But let's not forget, every time we try to do it, someone's always running away because of love. Because 4 out of every 5 of our spies runs away with the other. And they just go running into the sunset together. And now we're down 4 more spies.
Now it's like, what do we do? It's really, really funny stuff, but also very important because all of this, the building conflict with Fairy again is, I'm sure, going to lead us into the wicked powers and all of this uneasiness. Specifically, that Kieran, I'm talking about Kieran, like he feels a presence in the land, like he feels something brewing. He just doesn't know what it is. So, I mean, my guy, all hail Craig. Just excellent, like fun, light-hearted, lovable stuff. Okay. We also have to talk about Kit. You remembered Kit? Like we're on with Kit?
Yeah, I remembered Kit, but I forgot the exact falling out with Ty, and I didn't want to look it up either because he was like, there was the confession of that he loved him. Right?
No. The falling out with Ty is that Ty raised Livy from the dead.
Oh, yeah. That's why he's dreaming about and saying the things like, no, we're not going to be friends if you do it, not with this Ty. That was what Tess was saying. She's like, he keeps talking in his sleep because I also knew there was the confession that he was in love with him. And I was like, that doesn't seem, it's more than that. But I also didn't want to go back and like bother you to be like,
oh no,
why do we hate him?
Those two things go hand in hand, but
right.
it was the Livy's a ghost thing.
Yeah, the necromancy.
That's like taking precedent over the like the heart love stuff. It's all tangled up together, which is why Livy writes that letter to Julian, being like, Julian, somebody has to do something. Like Ty, I really feel like Ty will never get over this. Like he's never going to love somebody like this again. Like this is really important to him. You don't understand how Kit like grounds him and like sees him and all of this stuff. Meanwhile, Julian is writing to Helen and Aline being like, do I interfere? What do I do?
And Kit is so worried about all of it to be like, look, Julian, I'm so glad that you're here, but I also don't want to hang out. If you don't want to hang out, like I respect you. I know that like you're Ty's brother first. You're not just a brother to him. You raised him. I can fake a headache if you need me to. I respect you. I respect our family. I don't know what you've been told. And he's like, and Julian right away, he's like, whoa, no. And like that also, I feel like you see Kit's growth there too, to be willing to have that conversation. And, and Tessa keeps saying it in all of her letters, like how much he's grown. She can, he's one of hers, but like it goes so deep. The pain goes so deep, and everybody involved who knows them knows how they're hurting without knowing the details.
Going on what you said, Jess, exactly, and so perfectly, as always, Kit does open up to Jace, and he writes that letter, and he's like, yo, you're the only one that's going to understand even a little bit of this. These are all of my feelings. I have to tell somebody all my feelings. I can't worry anybody else, and you're the only one. And you're going to tell me to, like, buck up and do it, and that's what I need to hear, but like you need to hear all my reasons first. And then Jace writes back and is like, buck up and bear it. Like I don't know what you want me to say, guy. Like
you knew what I was going to say, and like, welcome to being a Shadowhunter.
It never stops.
It never stops, which is also funny because even in some of the letters, I can't remember who said it right now, but they were like, well, maybe it was Magnus or Alec. He's like, well, you know how Emma and Julian are. You know how Shadowhunters are. They leap before they think. They just
That would
did
be
it.
Magnus.
That's right, because he was like, and now here I am, have to clean up their mess. And they didn't, that was the one where he was like, nobody asked me. They just wanted to do. Okay.
And that is in regard to Julian and Emma finding the Ouija board and then just deciding to make their own little triangle to use it. And Magnus is like, what?
Oh, yeah, their own planchette. Yeah, he was like, because being a Shadowhunter and summoning demons and ghosts with a Ouija board, there could be no repercussions to that.
Just excellent stuff. Of course, Emma and Julian are trying to do that, to talk to Rupert. And this is where they first make contact with Rupert because they tell him their names and he responds to Carstairs and Blackthorn. And that's, read the diary, take me home, all of these clues on our quest to break the curse. Spoiler alert, they break the curse. Of course they do. This is a lovely, happy, fluffy book. They break the curse. But in doing so, here's something else that I was not expecting, Jessica Marie. I was not expecting a kidnapping. Were you?
No, I was not expecting it because of how the whole rest of the book was. Yeah. I thought it was like...
I was like, oh, okay, we're all done.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be... Which is like, shame on us, right? Yeah. We should know better. But also... we weren't sure what to expect with this. We knew it as I don't think it was like a fan project. It was our project for her. And just we hear authors so often say and with Cassie Clare, it was different because she never said it was over. But thinking of the time that she was writing this, thinking of peak 2020, she was probably I need something light. I need something familiar. I need something grounding that'll bring joy to everybody. So in that knowing that context, there was no point where I thought that something negative was going to happen. It was just going to be, now, as I started reading it, I was like, this is just a setup because, even at the beginning of the book, she talks about the wicked powers. Even in the Kickstarter, part of the first X amount of people who ordered, I think in the first 24 hours or the first 48 hours, were getting the chapter. And I didn't read it because I didn't want it to take me out of this. Getting the first chapter of the wicked powers. So and then obviously I went to the Starcatcher signing with Cassie Clare, and she was talking about the wicked powers there, and that was part of the Q&A. So knowing that was in the distant future, I was just thinking this was a good in-between piece. You?
Yeah. No, I was absolutely and completely shocked. But then I was looking at it and I was like, there are pages.
You reread it. Left. You were like, it was there.
Yeah, no, but I was like, there are pages left. What is going on? Yeah, it is there. It is there because we have the sentence of Mother Hawthorne walks again. Mother Hawthorne is rising. Things are afoot. All the old harbingers are coming back. All of that is sprinkled in there in the letters and little one sentences here or there. So when you piece it all together, you're like, oh, well, it had to build to something, but did it? It didn't really have to. This is just a fun little project, but it did because it's a complete book. And
it's her.
And it's
I
her.
feel like I can't imagine her doing one-shot novellas.
Yeah, just amazing stuff here. So the kidnapping, who got kidnapped? Baby Wilhelmina. Mina got kidnapped. She got kidnapped by Mother Hawthorne. There's a note left. The Enclave is alerted. And Tessa hated to do that. Oh, that killed her to let the Enclave know what was going on.
Yeah, but she's also and again, it's set up in the book where she was I fight for my kids. Kid is my kid. I would protect him the way I would protect Mina. And I was like, oh, that was there. That should have been, meanwhile, I haven't reread it. It was just I loved how strong she was for this child that she adopted and considered her own immediately. And and I say that as somebody who has a cousin who is adopted and our family, there was never this is my he is my cousin. We all fight for him. We all ride at dawn for him. There was, and I thought that even something so simple as that and that embrace is not discussed about often because it shouldn't be also. It's just part of life. But it's just such a small inclusion.
Well, let's talk about the Herondale guilt, because that's a huge inclusion. The Herondale guilt here. So this meeting is set up through, they say, like a lot of intervening people. But the meet is set up. Mother Hawthorne is going to talk to Kit, Christopher Herondale, because he's the first heir. Mother Hawthorne was the nanny. It's this whole thing. It's very complicated, long history. Okay. And they have this meeting, and Kit is really upset. He's upset on a lot of different levels, too. Kit is upset, one, that Mina was taken because, oh my God, that's my sister. What are you doing? Absolutely not. Number two, that's my fault. That's my fault. Number three, it's my fault because I have this like weird destiny that I didn't ask for, that Jay says I just have to like grin and bear it because it's like going to be thrust upon me. And also I did not realize, this is, not me, but Kit being, I did not realize that so many people were working so hard and so diligently to insulate me from being around fairies and to protect me and let me grow up in a relatively sheltered childhood before all of this crap is thrust upon me. Because Kit is also like training and like learning how to be a shadow hunter and like doing all of this stuff. He's not in the academy, but he's like doing all of this stuff. So there's also like that part of it too. So Kit, I would say he's like burdened with like glorious purpose, but it's not. It's like an actual phrase. To the first heir rises with in awful glory. With the blood of both Seelie and Unseelie. So Kit is burdened by this, and he is just like hunkered down with all of this guilt, which is a very Herondale thing to do, as we know.
Yeah, and then takes it upon himself.
Exactly. Because that's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to do. Because he's got to protect his family.
Yeah, and I mean, it's repeated over and over again. He's a Herondale. I know a Herondale when I see one. And not just like, yes, in the Dark Artifices, but it's kind of like drilled into this book too. He's so much like them. Like I would know. I mean, from so many different angles too, because you even have it from Alec lived with Jace, and Tessa tells that, she reminds us of the relationship and the guilt they all carry.
So there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt. And I like that in Tessa's like letter, Tessa's kind of like, yeah, all of this happened. And like, oh, by the way, Julian saved the day because of course he did, because he plotted and is smart and didn't tell anybody, because Julian loves a dramatic reveal, because we love Julian. And here comes the Wild Hunt and Gwyn and Diana to sweep away Mother Hawthorne, because wild magic, Wild Hunt, that's the jurisdiction there. And it is, so like all of that is wrapped up with this kidnapping, but it is just building the blocks to the wicked powers, because Kit has to deal with all of this. And then we end with Kit and Drew texting, and Kit being to Drew like, no, I am not okay. Like physically I'm okay, but emotionally I'm not okay. And he kind of like trails off a little bit. And then Drew is like, okay, well, here's another huge plot point. Jaime, who is on mission to Fairy, is missing. They've lost contact with him. Something is going down. Like, this is it. And then it's like, we have nothing.
I know you read this twice. Did you read the Wicked Powers chapter after this at all to know if that's how it sets up?
No, I needed to stay right here.
I haven't either. That's why I was like, I'm curious of if it will pick up immediately where this is left off, or are we going to do I'll say, because it's pertinent to pop culture timeline, are we going to start off how Wicked does? Spoiler for Wicked, so cover your ears for like 20 seconds, where you start where the Wicked Witch is dead, and then we go back and say, hey, here's how we got here. So do we start off in the future, but hold on, let's throw it back for a little bit.
Wait, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up here.
Exactly. It all started when my mom met my dad.
I don't know. It's so exciting. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. We've talked a lot about like authors keep writing, right? They keep writing books, like duologies become trilogies, become more. And the conversation of like, who wants this? Like, does anybody really want this? Here's the thing. I want this. I desperately wanted this. And I didn't even realize how much I wanted this until I sat and finished it and was like, that was delightful. I'm going to read that again because that was fun as hell. And I'm finally having fun with the Shadowhunters and I'm not crying. And that's so great. So Jess, where do you feel on the spectrum of like, you know, authors keep writing, which is wonderful. We like that, but like, why? You know, why?
I feel like a hypocrite, honestly, because I feel like we've had conversations, maybe not a hypocrite, but maybe it's more like self-evaluation, because we've had conversations where we've posed the rhetorical question, at what point is enough enough? When do you stop? What if you had an author who was committed to a duology or a trilogy and now it's become like this whole universe? Maybe in those instances when we were committed at one point and then we took a step back, we were no longer the audience. But there is an audience for it. And I feel like we're the audience for Shadowhunters, because Cassie Clare can write Shadowhunters for the rest of her life. And even if it was bad, I'd be like, no, eat it up. This is the best thing I've ever read. Because it's so rich. So I'm really sad. As of right now, 2024, when we're recording, she's on record saying the Wicked Powers is it. That's where she's wrapping that is where she's wrapping Shadowhunters. The Wicked Powers will be the last trilogy. And I don't want it to be this last trilogy, which, Laura, I think you feel the same way too, no?
I absolutely feel the same way. It is going to be ridiculously upsetting when the Shadowhunters chapter, The World, when Cassie Clare closes that book, because, oh my gosh. And just really like, the richness, the world, you've pretty much like covered all of it at this point.
We're still missing some. We have the Dead Red Scrolls and some other stuff.
There's just a few things, but like you've touched most of it. And so you are able to have a visceral reaction when they clean that flask and it says Matthew Fairchild. Like, you know what that means.
Let me tell you the amount of overwhelming happy tears that I had reading this, but like actually didn't cry because I just got my lashes done. So we know like our no 24-hour rule. Because I would start reading and I would put it down. I would be like, oh my God, they just mentioned Lucy. Oh my God, MF. I was like, MF. And it was like, Matthew Fairchild. Like, and they were so indifferent to these reactions, and they found it in their little quarters of the Devil Tavern. And it was, and Magnus is like, show your rings and say your last name. It'll mean something to them. And I'm like, yeah, Magnus. Like, it was really, really hard because it was just, like we've said, we keep repeating, it is such a rich world. It is all show, not tell when it comes to found family. And it was, for the most part, so happy and joyous to be in this world that Cassie has created. And we've said time and time again, if you've been following all of our episodes this year, joy has been an overarching theme in a lot of the things that we've read this year unintentionally. And we've found so much of it through various ways. And this is just another example.
Jess, did you have a specific letter or situation that you liked the best as we wrap here?
I don't know if I had something specific, but I loved Emma's insights to her with her personal diary about Julian, of like him communicating with her, of him like there was one where he was just like, I'm so sorry, be mad at me, I'm the reason. And he was like, she's like, what are you talking about? Like, you just read a diary. And he's like, I should have never doubted you. Then like the giggles that I would get when she would be like, good for her and Julian were fucking all the Like, good for her. And she would write about it in her diary, and she's like, and I told him to take his shirt off because he fucking looked good, and he's mine. And then I took a picture, and here's my picture because I'm putting it in the diary because my man looks good. And it's not that I was like, oh my God, Emma. It's just because we know the journey that they go through. Yes, I'm biased when it comes to Julian, but like even when they were communicating in bed, like Laura, you're really good at picking up the little moments, and like their little moments of they would throw it back of like asking questions with the way that they used to do it when they were solely parabatai. I thought it was a lot of the little moments that made me giddy. What about you?
Well, I've mentioned Kieran in all of his letters and how much I just love everything that has to do with Kieran. I just adore him. Surprising here. I really, really enjoyed the Ty chapters. I liked having Ty's point of view. I liked being there with Ty. I liked him explaining things. I liked him finding friends and nourishing his friendship with the Lynx. I liked that he is learning portals. Like, how fun. I like that he has this relationship with Ragnar, and that, and talk about quiet moments. I like that Ty portaled into the kitchen and ran into Kit and had this awkward boy conversation, and the only one to see it was Livy, and Livy's like freaking out, but Livy can't do anything because Livy's a ghost, and she's just, did Ty see the way that Kit's fingernails were like digging into his palms, into his jacket? And did he see any of that? Like, and they're talking about like, when will you forgive me? It's not going to be anytime soon. It's not an easily forgivable thing. And then Ty just like turns around and leaves, like, and Kit like drops the gun that he fired because like Kit can fire James's gun, and like that's gonna be important. And like that night and that little moment I thought was so special and so important, and just shows that like even these boys are hurting, and they're hurting so badly, but they're just boys, and they're not able to really get it out there yet and really express what's going on because of this big thing that happened. And everybody's struggling with big feelings, but they're just little boys.
It reminds me of Alec and Magnus, right? When they were like, they loved each other so deep and so big, but there was this big, huge obstacle between them that they couldn't just get over. They still had to work through it. You talking it out is just like struck me.
Well, and that's Cassie Clare, and that's what she can do with just, I mean, I'm not saying just, that's what Cassie Clare can do with some Tumblr posts, man. That's what can be done.
Would you recommend this?
Absolutely, I would recommend this. Don't start with this. Don't start with this. Again, I'm sorry to everyone. I'm sorry. Again, you have to start with the Mortal Instruments. If you don't start with the Mortal Instruments, if you don't have that baseline, everything is weird, and it just, you're just all over the place. You have to start with the Mortal Instruments. Don't start here. That being said, don't come here after only reading the Infernal Devices. Don't come here after only reading the Dark Artifices. You have to read everything to enjoy this. Not necessarily the Red Scrolls of Magic, not necessarily Ghosts of the Shadow Market, not necessarily Shadowhunter Academy, but you need to read the mains to really love this. And this is like a love letter and testament, I think, to the fans, and reminds me of the Supernatural fandom episode. And again, it's just filled with love and joy.
Perfectly said. I can't think of anything else that's better. With all that being said, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.